All right, back with the WMAY morning news feed. He's joining us just a few minutes earlier than we anticipated, but glad he's here live in studio with us. Don Schaefer with Midwest Truckers Association. Don, thanks for taking time. A lot to talk about here.
Well, glad to be here, Greg.
So let's get into it. We're seeing headlines for months. Supply chain issues really kind of, sparked up. I think it was one of the most troubling things that I reported on early in the pandemic was when we were hearing about meat shortages, not being able to get the types of chicken you wanted.
Sure.
So that really was, at least for me, a pretty stark realization of how the supply chain's impacting. I knew that there were a lot of issues with the toilet paper or whatnot, but I never had any problems with that. But when it was the food source, where it really made an impact on me, at least. And then you hear about medical supplies, part of the supply chain. And when we're in a pandemic, that's the last thing we want to have bottlenecked. But what's going on here? Give us an assessment from the beginning of the pandemic to where we're at right now.
Well, 18 months ago, if you came back and asked somebody, what's the supply chain, they would go, I have no idea. It's not not a common words that you would hear in the everyday vocabulary. That's changed quite a bit because people finally realize that everything we eat, drink, consume has to move into the supply chain. It can be anywhere around the world, but we're just going to use a textbook example. We'll use a container because it seems like so much of what we consume comes from China, and as a result, it has to come. 90% of the time, it's coming on a container from inland China, going to Hong Kong, Shanghai, what have you, gets on a ship, goes to Long Beach, LA. There's other places all on the West Coast. And then from there, it gets on a train. And then on a train, it comes, a ton of it comes, and people don't realize, it comes to Chicago area, Joliet, Bedford Park, these areas, which is considered the largest inland port in the world. So all these goods and services are coming in, and then, say the Center Point facility in Joliet. Then it goes to warehouses. Warehouses, they break it down. You've got a Target warehouse, and it's going to go to 100 different Targets. So they break it down all the way along the line, and it's great when it works. Well, you know what? We've had issues where they haven't worked. We've had manpower issues because of COVID, starting even in China. China shut down. So a lot of the stuff we wanted either was shipping, the shipping was going to take it and get it over, but it didn't happen. So we have been to the point where we've had problems there. We've had problems at the harbor. We've had problems with the railroads, truckers, warehouses. Right now, we're at that point where I think everyone finally realizes what the problem is, and now they're trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to take care of this? I mean, right now, we need people, and we need to have the system back in place, or we're going to have shortages of everything. It makes no difference what it is. It's just going to be a problem.
Especially as we head into the holiday season where shopping's increasing. People are wanting to get their gifts for their family, and if their gifts involve anything along the lines of the supply chain, it could very well either not be on the shelf or could be coming late from whatever online retailer they purchase it.
And you go to any store right now. I mean, any store, you're going to see some empty shelves, or not empty, but no inventory there.
Right.
And the problem we've seen is, of course, once we can get the container, out of the port and in the pike, we can get things moved pretty much. But then you run into little things, and every time something happens, it's compounded by when you get that container, it comes off a train. It's supposed to go on what they call a chassis. And then the chassis is supposed to be picked up by a truck, and the truck's supposed to take it to the warehouse. Well, we got a shortage of chassis. There's a shortage of truck drivers. There's a shortage of dock hands. And all these just, compound the problem. So they're trying to, where do we start? And that's basically, what they've been trying to do. 2 weeks ago, we had 156 container ships sitting in Long Beach, LA Harbor, waiting to be unloaded. Usually there's 2 or 3. And it just backed up.
And these are massive, massive ships. I mean, they've got how many containers on there?
They could have 20,000 containers on them. I mean, they're massive. And here, those of us in the Springfield area, we see them every day. They're going up and down, the railroad,
right,
because that is one of the main conduits to take them into the Chicago area. And the UP has that line. And, they're running as much as they can. The manpower, the number of pieces of equipment they have to move it, and it's working great. So once they get them in there, they break down the containers and bingo, they start getting it into the process. Now the problem is we got all these empty containers, and now they got to get them back to China and to reuse them. And I mean, so it's a logistical nightmare right now, maybe the best way to put it. But I think we've seen the peak of the problem, so we're keeping our fingers crossed.
We're talking with Don Schaefer. He is with Midwest Truckers Association here on the WMAY morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop. And Don, we've talked before in the past about pre-COVID, regulations impacting the trucking industry and whatnot. Then COVID comes along, throws a huge wrench in everything. But are we seeing some of the same issues also compounding the trucking industry when it comes to employment, when it comes to the types of trucks that can be operated in different states? Tell us about how government's impacting the situation.
Sure.
Right now.
I mean, government has they are the chief regulator of the industry. And so you do have issues. I mean, as you were saying, how do they regulate the trucks? Well, the federal agencies regulate the trucks. California has their own set of regulations that make it even stricter on trucks. So that compounds the problem we have, like in the state of California. But we're dealing also with a number of truckers out there. We've had just like any industry, there's been a lot of people who have said, "Hey, you know what? I'm not ready to go back to work. I may not even go back to work at all." So we've seen the labor pool, um, uh, I would say, decrease maybe, but not as much decrease as demand has increased. So we need more drivers, and until they come up with new technology that's going to take care of some of that. We need bodies in the trucks, and it's not an easy process to be a truck driver. You got to pass a physical, you got to maintain drug and alcohol testing, these types of things. You have certain skills to drive the truck. So it's not the easiest job in the world, but what has happened is like every other job, the pay scale has gone up. So people who had sat there and said, 2 years ago, I ain't going to drive a truck. It doesn't appeal to me at all. Now they're looking at the dollar signs that are being offered to drive those trucks, and they're going, "Hey, that's a lot more money than I'm going to make at any Walmart, any Home Depot, what have you. This is a good opportunity plus full benefits." And so what has happened is all of a sudden, a lot of people are thinking twice about truck driving. We've got retired people who have retired from their regular jobs and saying, "Hey, I wouldn't mind doing that. I could drive short haul. I could drive long haul. I could do whatever I wanted." Retired couples that the industry loves retired couples, husband wife teams that get in the trucks. They love that. Um, the truck driver schools, same thing. They are full, and there are companies that sit there and just wait for the truck driving schools to graduate their drivers, and they snatch them and they put them to work. So if they're interested in truck driving, I mean, this is a great opportunity for someone to get in the business.
Even I would imagine maybe looking at some of those younger drivers. What are the age requirements? Is it 21? You have to
Yeah,
be to
you
get a
got to be
CDL.
see, and that's the one big problem is that you get kids that come out of high school, they aren't interested in going to college, and they want to learn a trade. They want to be a plumber, electrician, what have you, those types of things. 18, they can go an apprenticeship, a year or two, and they get their card, and then they're set. They've got a great job, they got a great career. The problem with trucking is that you can be 18 and you can drive a truck, but you can't leave the state of Illinois. And that's like every state. It's all set the same way. You got to be 21 to drive interstate. Um, and that what that does is that kind of it discourages some people saying, "Well, I can't really make the good money unless I can drive interstate, but I can't do it until I'm 21." Well, the guys who by the time they're 21, these guys, other people have got good careers already. It could be carpenters, electricians, what have you, and they aren't going to go back and look back on trucking. So, trucking depends on people who are looking at second careers, people who have decided, maybe this is something I've always wanted to do. I tried something else. Let's give it a try. And that's what the industry depends on. And because of that, the average age in the industry is higher than a lot of professions. So you get drivers, on average, who are in their late 40s, early 50s, which is average. Um, But the industry has really rolled out everything they can to make it easier. The equipment is top notch now. It's totally different from the old trucks. It used to be the old trucks. You had two stick shifts, and you had to be able to drive a clutch. It was bumpy. Didn't have air conditioning. The newest trucks are like Cadillacs, 18-wheel Cadillacs. I mean, because they got everything. They got air ride seats. They got air conditioning. They got GPS. They
A little bed in the back, maybe a
Yep.
mini fridge so they can stay overnight
A little
somewhere.
motorhome.
And
Yeah, you can. And of course, and everyone says, well, what about these driverless trucks? And that's a big issue. They're going, well, if you're going to get driverless trucks, you don't need drivers, which is not true because of the fact is no matter what happens, you're always going to have to deal with the first mile, last mile. Trucks are going to be great if you're driving, on interstate dedicated truck lanes. That that's going to happen. It's happening now. They are out there. We've seen trucks like Otto, which is a one that they make beer deliveries. And they're out there on the road right now, not full fledged, but they've been experimenting with them. You've seen Tesla truck. We see the Tesla truck coming through Springfield all the time because of the fact that they do they do a lot of test runs on not just on the interstates but on 36, these roads, so they're using that as their test bed to see how the technical capabilities of those pieces of equipment are. Are we going to see, driverless trucks? I think we'll see assisted trucks. It'll make it easier. And
But like you said, that last mile and the first mile, getting out of the warehouse area without getting into an accident and getting into where it's being delivered without getting into an accident.
Well, perfect example. We got a truck coming in off of 54 here in Spalding, and is that truck going to be able to come around automatically and come up the driveway here at the radio station? No, not at least right now.
Right. Yeah, the
But
technology's not quite there yet,
but it's getting there. And the thing about it is that if that will help ease some of the burden, once we get to that point, it's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after that. I mean, we're looking down the road, just like cars are going to be the same way. We're going to have a technological upheaval, and not just with trucks. We're going to see it. We're seeing it with railroads. Trains are running now. There's two people on that train. That's it. And the manpower needed to operate a train, far less. Most of your warehouses, they're automated, and they're becoming more automated. The place where the automation is not is like at Long Beach, LA Harbor, at those ports. They still have arcane employment rules that have really shut down this whole process. So somewhere along the line, everyone's got to get up to speed on the technological advances and then say, hey, this is going to be the way, we can make, number one, we can get those shipments out. We can get them out on a timely basis, and we can do it on an economical basis because of the fact that everything we're looking at right now, you're seeing ads of manufacturers saying, hey, this year, you know what, we decided we aren't going to put it in a container, and we aren't going to wait for 2 months for it to get from Shanghai to Chicago. We're going to put them on an airplane, and it's
Wow.
going to cost 8 times as much, but we're going to get the product to the customer so they can be on the shelves for the holiday season. That means prices are going to go up, and prices are going up on everything. And we want to write a textbook on inflation. This is it. It's the shipping transportation costs are key. Compounded with the high cost, price of fuel has literally doubled in the last 18 months. Actually, in the last year, I mean, diesel fuel has just skyrocketed. There's a lot of politics that are being played there, and so I think a lot of people are saying, somewhere along the line, people are going to have to get their heads together because we're going to price ourselves out of everything, just compounding all these issues.
So it just continues to stack up. Don Schaefer with Midwest Truckers Association. Greatly appreciate you taking the time. Let's talk again soon, all right? Because this issue ain't going anywhere for any time soon.
No, it's going to be happening after Christmas, too. So,
boy, that's always good to hear. Don, thanks for bringing the good news.
Great. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. It is the WMAY morning news feed. I'm